Welcome to another Software Explorations. Today, we're going to do an overview concept of what is QA engineering. If you do not know by now, I am Tech Coach Ralph. The reason I wanted to give this overview, I know I've been doing a lot of videos about how to do different things that QA engineers do, but I haven't given a general understanding of what QA engineering actually is. So, first and foremost, QA stands for quality assurance. And as someone in quality assurance, there is engineering work that can be done as opposed to just software engineers or just cybersecurity engineers. There is a good bit of QA engineering work as well. And that goes from automation to how you it goes from automation, it goes from how you manage test cases, implementing tools and applications that can help further along the QA process, the quality assurance process, because at the end of the day, without quality assurance, what happens to the software that we're producing? Let's get into it. So, as I mentioned before, this presentation today is an overview of what quality assurance engineering actually is. So, let's start off with what is quality assurance? And we're going to talk about the concepts of quality assurance, the importance of quality assurance, and the role of a QA engineer in ensuring high quality products or services. So, let's start off with the concept of quality assurance. Quality assurance is validating that the application or the software, the product or the service that we are providing as a company is working as expected. What does it mean as working as expected? So we have a set of requirements and we have to make sure that we have a set of requirements and we have to make sure that the actual product that we're building meets those requirements, meets those standards, and not to mention, it is also usable for the customers that we're producing it for. And that leads us to what is the importance of quality assurance? Quality assurance is pretty much the last line of defense when it's leaving the software team or the product team to make sure that our application or our software or our product is working correctly. And the reason that's important is because once it gets out of our hands, it gets pretty much into the customer's hand, and that can make or break your company. If you release a product that is full of errors, doesn't work properly, or doesn't have good user functionality or interaction, then that looks bad on your company, and now you can lose your job. There's the revenue that goes down. So many bad things can happen when quality assurance is not properly functioning. So that's why it's so important. Quality assurance is pretty much the gatekeeper to whether software gets released or not, and the overall reaction that the company gets. So, what is the role of the QA engineer in ensuring that the products are of high quality? So, we're going to get into that a little bit more, but in general, we as quality assurance engineers are involved in the project from start to finish. We need to make sure that we are set up on the road to success, that we are on the same page as our product owners, as our scrum masters, or as our software engineers, as our DevOps team. We are responsible for all of that, making sure that we're all on the same page. And then once we go through each parts of the software development lifecycle, we have a role to play in there. And especially as we get close to the end, where we are testing the product, We are seeing if we can have automated tests for the product just so we can have a continuous cycle of validation and verification that does not require tons and tons of manual testing. So, what are the responsibilities of a QA engineer? QA engineers conduct testing and evaluation process. And by that, we are, once the software is built by the developers, it goes into a stage of ready for testing. And as one example, and then we are running different various tests on the software. We're doing positive tests, negative tests, which we can definitely get more into as we move along in the series. But we are testing the product to make sure that it's working as we have defined, and we're evaluating it for user experience and make sure that it's easy to use. It's not complicated. QA engineers are also responsible for creating test plans and strategies, which I have a very interesting way that I like to conduct my test plans, which I will share with you later on. But we're responsible for creating the test plans, creating the strategies of how we're going to approach testing so that it is easily understandable and it's comprehensive, and it allows us to share with others to see if there's any gaps in our thinking process. Now, we also collaborate with development teams to identify defects. And when we do identify defects, we report those defects in order so it can be fixed. And we have to make sure that we do that during the development cycle, because once it gets out into the public, now that puts us liable for these defects and it gives a bad look on the company. It also costs the company a lot more money to fix defects that reach production level versus catching it during the software development lifecycle. So we need to make sure that we are very aware of these situations and we do our best to try to catch these bugs before they get to production. It's inevitable that defects at some point will reach the production, but it is our duty to make sure that it happens as least as possible. And the ones that do reach the production, they are very low impact. Lastly, we need to ensure that we are being compliant with industry standards, regardless of the industry that we're in. Whether we're in the pharmaceutical industry and we have to comply with FDA compliance policies or whatever policies regulate those industries, or maybe we are working in a video industry and um, we have to be aware of policies of like sharing people's video and things like that. All of those things we have to be aware of. So we have to make sure that we are in compliance with industry standards. Now, what are the required skills and qualifications to be in QA engineering? So you must be detailed oriented in nature and have strong analytical skills. So you have to be able to analyze software, think critically, figure things out. You also need to have a knowledge of different testing techniques and tools. And that's not only like, although we talk about a lot about automation, it's not limited to automation. You need to, you need to be familiar with spreadsheets, and you need to be familiar with different browsers, the tools that those browsers offer in order to be able to test websites, for instance. Or if you're testing desktop applications, you need to be familiar with different tools to test desktop applications. And then there's also tools that you need for reporting, and for managing your work. So, and there's new tools that's coming out every day. It's not just learning one thing and think that you can just mosey along the rest of the way. No, it's always something that you're going to be learning and something that you're always going to be doing. All right. Now, you also need to understand the software development lifecycle. What do I mean by the software development lifecycle? That means how a software is built from start to finish. All right. So, the planning phase where you're gathering the requirements to the phase where it's actually in development and you're working closely with the software developers and the software engineers to make sure that the product is being built up to spec, to where now it's taking you to when you're testing the software to make sure that there are no bugs, no gaps, no holes in what the software developers actually built, all the way to the release process where you're deploying your application to the public where then you can start getting some real feedback on whether the software was built correctly, whether it's whether it's usable. Right, so that's where you want to, and that's the last spot that you want to be finding bugs. You want to be able to report all as many defects as possible, especially the most critical defects, which goes into like your strong, which goes into being detail oriented and having strong analytical skills, right? So that's where it comes into the understanding of the software development lifecycle. And probably the most important thing is having great communication and teamwork skills so you can effectively collaborate with your team. Because a team is not just the QA engineer and the software developer, it also includes the scrum master, it includes the product owner, it might include a project manager, in addition to the other teams where you're probably dealing with the teams that would be deploying the software and infrastructure, all of that. So you need to have strong communication skills, strong teamwork skills, be able to get along with everyone so you can have a successful product. Now, what are the career paths and opportunities for QA engineers? So, of course, there's entry level positions and there's tons of career growth. For example, there are QA analysts, there are manual testers. And although they are becoming less and less needed because companies are starting to incorporate QA engineers to be able to do all of that from analysis to manual testing to automated testing. It's being all encompassed by the QA engineer. And this is why this video is so important. When I first started off, I was a QA analyst, but as I moved up, I went into automation and then became a QA engineer. And now I am able to do the full spectrum, but the focus is always on critical thinking and pushing everything towards being in a more automated fashion because we need to be able to reduce the we need to be able to reduce the chances of human error. All right. And then there's also certification options to enhance your professional credibility. Now, although I don't think that it is required and it makes like it might not necessarily impact your work performance, but it does help when you are going through the interview process in order to stand out from amongst the rest. Because if you went out there and let's say you're a great QA engineer, but you also went and got some certifications or you have a degree in a particular field, it helps you stand out against the people who do not have that and did not put in the same amount of effort that you did. Now, while it's not completely necessary because degrees and certifications don't mean that you actually know what you're doing. But if you do put in the effort, it can help you stand out and get more chances of being interviewed and recognized and moving up in that process. All right. And there's demands for QA engineers in all types of industries, in the video industry, in like the cloud services industry, in the pharmaceutical industry. Everything needs testing because, like I said earlier, we are the last line of defense and we do not want to embarrass our company, and companies don't want to be embarrassed either. If you see a company that does not have any QA testers, QA engineers, then you can expect to see bugs coming out in the near future. And the bigger the company is, the harder it will hit. All right. In conclusion, so we discussed today what is quality engineering. And as I mentioned, it is the last line of defense for our company from the software development perspective. And we want to make sure that we are releasing amazing software and we are collaborating amazingly with our team. And why quality engineering? Well, that's because you get to dive into so many different fields. You get to touch a little bit of everything. You get to understand how software engineers work. You get to understand how the release process works. You get to think creatively on how your users work. You get to interact with so many different people. You are the person who is responsible for make or break of the software, and it is very fun. And the things that you get to discover, so many tools in QA engineering that we will go over on this channel. So I would encourage you to consider a career in quality engineering. I know that we see so many QA people going like we see that QA being outsourced a lot, but I believe that that's because the type of QA that's being outsourced is for that manual, monotonous, repetitive work. But QA engineers who are able to think dynamically and to come up with creative solutions, I think the demand for that is high. And if you get into that, you can make a huge difference and have tons of fun and see tons of career growth. That was our software explorations, our overview of what quality engineering is. I hope that you found it useful and that it can help you consider going into a career in QA engineering. And if you found this video helpful and you'd like to see more of it, like the video, leave me a comment, and of course, subscribe to the channel so you can get notified of when I release more videos or go live to do these live software explorations where you can see what QA engineers actually do. All right. But until next time, my friends.
If you enjoyed the fascinating information shared in this video and you want more, be sure to hit the subscribe button to Tech Coach Ralph to be notified for new videos.